have to watch a clock. I don't even have to watch a clock.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Bold Moves podcast. Happy Monday. Today is episode number 131, and I'm so excited to share something really special with you. I started this podcast in mid-September of 2016, and I wanted to do something sort of retrospective at the end of that year, but only having done a few months of podcasts, thought it would be kind of silly to do some of my favorite interviews. But I decided that this year I would do not only some of my favorites from 2017, but also go back to some of the very first interviews in 2016 as well, and share just some of my favorite portions of them. Now, I've divided this little retrospective up into two parts, and they are a little different. So one is this week, the other one is next week. And this week, I'm going to call my business BAs. And I'm saying BA because I want to maintain my not explicit rating. So if you can't figure out what it is, hit me up on social media and I'll help you. Otherwise, I'll let you be creative and use your imagination for what that stands for. But these are a few of the people that I have interviewed and little parts of the interviews where I think is just fantastic business advice. So if you're thinking about starting a business or growing your business in 2018, let this be the perfect motivation for you to do exactly that. All right. And it was so hard to pick, by the way, my favorites, but some of them I actually couldn't choose from them because I've somehow lost the interview files. So if you are a former guest, don't be sad if you're not on here. I seriously loved every single one of my guests, but this could be probably a 20-hour episode if I let myself get too carried away, and I had to cut myself off somewhere. Speaking of, I'm going to cut off the intro now. I hope you enjoy episode 131, a compilation of interviews of some of my favorite business BAs.
It started when I was a little kid. I was fascinated. The only time I really had to have fun was in the grocery aisle in the store. I would be with my mom, we'd be checking out, and I would look at these magazines, and it would be cool to see these beautiful places, beautiful people, fashion, all this kind of stuff. And I kind of thought to myself, like, this is possible. And this all may sound kind of cliche, but I come from a very poor childhood, which I'm proud of, very proud. It was very humbling. It taught me how to value people as well as everything I have. Nothing's really disposable to me. But really, we grew up on welfare. My mom didn't speak English. She was bipolar, paranoid schizophrenic. So you can imagine, this is kind of rough for a kid, an only child to grow up with. I mean, she learned English through me. So I was constantly fantasizing about getting out of this situation. And I would sit and draw when I had a chance, faces, and try to replicate what I saw in the magazines. And my makeup career and modeling, I guess, was born when I was maybe 5 years old,
Absolutely. I think a lot of us, especially girls, can probably relate to the whole idea of wanting to play dress up or getting to play dress up as a kid. But I think it's really awesome that both of us get to do that as a career. I think another interesting part of your story, and by the way, it's not cliche. I don't think oh my gosh, my cat just jumped up and fell down. Never a dull moment around here. But I don't think most people would call that a cliche story. Definitely, the American dream, but I don't know about cliche.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think another part of your story that's interesting that doesn't really relate as directly to the final outcome is what you did working with was it a women's shelter, or you were a resource for a while?
I was for 4 years. I went to college at UW Milwaukee. I got a double major in Spanish and psychology. And, I think the psychology was probably trying to figure out the situation with my mom, trying to figure out people in general, how to motivate people. how to inspire people, how to understand. And of course, I love cultures. I come from a different culture where English was my second language after Serbian. So in any case, shortly after college, I modeled in Barcelona for 4 months, and I came back and I got a job at a domestic violence center as a bilingual employment counselor. And I used my degrees there in my Spanish and everything. So.
What made you decide to switch from that to makeup and modeling? Was it an immediate change? Was it something that you kind of gradually went from one to the other? How did you make the switch from the counselor role to the model and makeup artist role?
It's really interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot of fear when people want to do their own thing. I'm no exception to this at all. I was there for 4 years. I loved it. It really gave me a chance to use my college degree, but I was constantly in my head inventing photo shoots, images, styles, trips, bookings. I don't really know. So I negotiated that job with a flexible schedule. They had a really hard time filling that job. It's a nonprofit. It didn't really pay much, but it was very rewarding. So I made a win-win situation out of it by taking the job as long as I could have a relatively flexible schedule. Mm-hmm. So even though I made double modeling part-time while I worked there full-time, it still took me a bit to get everything together to leave that job, Mm-hmm. So I took a year to put together a hair and makeup book, to test with photographers, meaning to do different shoots, to experiment with eye shapes on different people, hair textures, skin colors, personality types, mm-hmm. client environments, everything and anything. And after a year of that, I was ready to do it. So 4 years into that career, I left and I never looked back. And that was in 2004. And I've been doing this full time, and I can do it. You can do it. Anybody can do it. You've just got to go out on a limb. That's where the fruit is. Like that famous Mark Twain saying, in most cases, you're going to want to make money at it. You're not going to be probably somebody who has a ton of money that you never have to work again. Most of us haven't won the lottery. So what you have to do is create a client base. Otherwise, you're a hobbyist, because this should pay your bills. Right. You will have to probably invest something up front. You probably have to have marketing materials. I don't know what, but be prepared to do it. And then you're going to have to just step off the cliff and, grow your wings as you go. Because there's going to be bumps, and nobody can tell you the right way to go, but just go ahead and do it.
I like that. Feel that fear, do it anyway. Be prepared for bad things to happen, but look for the silver lining.
And Mandy, there's a lot of good. I mean, think about this. All you guys think about this. Every time I'm like wondering if something's going to work or not, I look around me, right? Everything in my sight, somebody invented, somebody created. It may not be the first time. It may be the 100th. Maybe it was the first. I don't know. What does this mean? There's success all around me. I mean, how many hundreds of inventors am I looking at their work right in front of me? You know what I mean? Absolutely. So if they did it, how can I not? I mean, we're in a country where we can do anything. We're not going to end up in a terrible situation for artistic expression. So just do it. Life is too short to wonder what you could have done.
Absolutely. And I think you didn't even mention the internet, which is so huge right now. Yeah. I feel like just about anyone can find a way to make money if they need in a pinch.
Yeah.
We talked about our Lyft experience and how worst case scenario, there's always Lyft or Uber.
For sure.
Netta and I and one of our friends were in Baltimore and got in a Lyft ride with a music teacher, and she sang opera, and then we ended up at the hotel with her while her phone charged for an hour and a half telling ghost stories. So
yeah, and you never know who you'll meet too. Like these people, they're inspiring, or somebody may become your client. It all comes from the energy you give off, how you make people feel. It's all about relational income. If people don't like you, they're not going to use you. Why should they? They shouldn't, because you've said this before, Mandy. Your dollars are your way of investing in something you believe in, someone you like, something you'd like to see do better. Something we don't believe in, we tend not to support. So if you're cool to people, that also is helpful if it's genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely vote with our dollars, and if a person doesn't like you, that doesn't mean that's the end for you. That just means you're not their ideal and there's always going to be someone who likes you better. I love that.
Exactly.
When you quit, now this is something I guess that I don't usually talk about on the podcast and haven't shared that much publicly, but you worked at at the Domestic Violence Center. I was a teacher before I did modeling and makeup artistry full time. I guess I was doing it on the side the same way that you were prior. Do you ever feel like guilty about doing something that can be perceived as more superficial? Because obviously before you were 100% in service full time at the shelter or at the Domestic Violence Center. And when I quit, I was like, oh, I struggled with both feeling like, I wasn't making as big of a difference, as well as feeling like I wasn't using my degrees and that maybe I wasn't using my intelligence. I don't feel that way anymore, but if anyone is thinking that, like, did you ever struggle with that? Or what would you say to someone who is, maybe struggling with that themselves?
The best gift you can give yourself, the world, and others is to be the best person you can be. So if you look at that, what is that exactly? It's got to be the thing that makes you the happiest, perhaps many times is what you're the best at, like think of the people who inspires you. Maybe for me, it could be like Salvador Dali or somebody like that. Like I associate him with things that inspire me. His art, all these different multifaceted furniture, paintings, drawings, film, and we're all multifaceted, but I feel now like I'm contributing more. I use my art in my paintings for charities. And the only way a lot of times people know who I am and what that is because of modeling or makeup, because I meet so many people on different sets. I actually, in a different way, make a huge difference now. Back then it was isolated to Waukesha County and the shelter and whoever came in from surrounding counties. But now I'm around the country and around the world doing this. I can do better. And with, you said, the internet, people buy my art pieces and I can donate to a charity and just send it off in the mail. It's better. Yeah.
That's a great point, that when you're your best self and really living your purpose, you can contribute a lot more. I really like that. What would you say your purpose is overall, if you had to describe it?
My purpose is using my art both different ways to help people think outside of the box. So whatever my art is typically has something more of a meaning. I do try to make it look aesthetically pleasing or beautiful. I try to become better with the charcoal or the watercolors or whatever. But a lot of the art is about scientific things, the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, Nikola Tesla, and the Bose-Higgins particle. And the wearable art is all recycled. I want people to, if they see my stuff, ask questions. At least one thing they can come away from, it would be great. Things aren't disposable, or they learn something new, and I get to do what I love the best. So.
I love that. And
yeah, don't think linearly. Think outside of the box. Don't look at the pitfalls. A lot of people get so caught up in looking at the pitfalls, oh my God, if I do this, I might fail. If I do that, you're going to stop yourself. You're the only one that can stop yourself. Just go for it. But you know what I mean? I may have been in a different position because I had nothing to lose. Therefore, I was a little bit fearless. But even if you have you don't really have a lot to lose except time. And listen, you can always make more money a million different ways. You can't make more time. That's what you've got to worry about. So when you think about that, just try your thing. And people may discourage you. It's okay. It may come from really good intentions, but if they don't believe in their dreams, how are they going to believe in yours? Just go do it. Just go try it. At least try it, that you can say you tried something. Give yourself a chance. Yeah. Yeah, I think, we're born into this life. The thing is, we're born into this life there's no user manual. In other words, there's no right or wrong way to do anything. There's just the way that works best for you. And this world, this planet it's so big, yet it's so small. You could do anything. And especially now, it's so small with the internet, connecting with people, much less travel, talking to people in real time like we are across the country, you know what I mean? Or you could do this with other people. So you have so many ways to do what you want to do that I feel that they were really, it would have been far-fetched before, you know what I mean? We can make a difference now. We can make a difference with tweeting, with Facebook, with social media in general. There is so much more out there for us to take advantage of than there was when I first.
there are a few universal things, and fear is certainly one of them. Like, it doesn't matter what color you are, what size you are, what gender you are, you will experience fear. And what Seth Godin, an author that I like, he talks about dancing with fear, because you can't not experience it. Like, that's impossible to not experience it. So you experience it, and you recognize that, but then you have to learn to dance with it. Like my Buddhist monk was telling me when I was in, I love how I can say, like, my Buddhist monk.
My Buddhist monk. I have a monk speed dial, and
like, exactly. Oh man, my Buddhist monk was telling me when I was meditating. I mean, think about it. He was 3 feet away from me, giving me, like, just incredible. I'm so grateful. He was saying, when you're sitting there still and quiet and meditating, when you're doing that, and I was asking him, because we had dinner, I was like, oh my God, I get, like, my face will itch, or like my back will ache, or my knees, or whatever. And I'm like, what do you do? Like, do you ever itch, like scratch your itch? And he was like, when you become in it enough, when you become, it's all about detachment. So you recognize that your cheek may itch, and then you dismiss it. You recognize that your knee may hurt, then you dismiss it. Because the moment you try to ignore it or fight away from it or combat it, that's when you give it more attention. So just like fear, you have to recognize it and then learn to dance with it or dismiss it or whatever. So and I'm big about getting outside of my comfort zone. So Tim Ferriss actually talks about this in the 4-Hour Workweek. If you were to take a piece of paper and make it into 3 columns, and on your top, your main sentence would be like what you want to do, or what makes you scared, or what your fear is. And you can write down the first column, like 10 things that, and you want to double check exactly how he does this, but 10 things that could go wrong, like that realistically could go wrong. 10 things that, what would happen realistically if those things happen. So one thing that could go wrong, like starting a new business or quitting a job, I wouldn't make that much money, right? I would go from X amount of $1,000 a month to X amount. Mm-hmm. And then that would stem to, I would not be able to pay my bills and this and that. And then the third column is, what could I do to minimize the middle column from happening? So it's a fear exercise. Okay. And to actually think about the worst case scenario. What is the actual realistic worst case scenario of whatever you're fearful of? You want to get on stage and do stand-up comedy? What's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, you could maybe faint from anxiety. Yeah, that's bad. So how can you minimize that? Maybe you can drink water. Maybe you can take deep breaths, whatever.
Sure.
But what's more realistic? Well, you're going to get nervous. People may not laugh like they didn't for me. And and you will feel stupid. You'll feel judged. You'll feel bad about yourself. You're still alive. Like, the sun will still come up in the morning. If you can just really just ground yourself in the realistic, like what is possible to happen, you actually won't. It's actually not that bad. And one thing, and I mentioned the other time we tried to do this, weaker people have done harder things.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up again, because I would have forgotten, and I really loved it last time.
Yeah, it's one thing that stays with me every time I'm in a tough spot, or I have to make a difficult decision, or I'm fearful of something. Think about, like, you're a very strong individual, and anyone listening to this probably is too, or trying to become that more so than they are, because for whatever reason. I guarantee whatever you're going through, and this is a bold statement, but I guarantee it, that whatever you're going through or about to go through, somebody weaker has gone through something harder. And it's the same thing as, like, if one person has done it, it is not impossible.
Right.
You just have to, like, really anchor that and ground yourself in that mentality. Then it won't be as bad. And if you go, like, say you're fearful, like, I'm afraid of heights. Well, if you do the number one thing you're afraid of, imagine what I mean, then every possibility is open to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're afraid of heights, and you go skydiving.
Now
You're not afraid of anything. You know, it's like,
right.
well, well, I'm not like a Persian fortune cookie, maybe, but because you asked, no, no, my main thing is just be grounded in gratitude. Like, just put things into perspective as much as you can. Because even though your brain is an organ, you have to treat it as a muscle. And just like fear, and just like gratitude, and just like perspective, and just like being kind, and just like whatever, you have to constantly train it to do those things. So you just have to practice at it. So that's it.
I love that. And that makes it really accessible for anyone who wants to improve in any specific way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Purpose. I think it's always been, I really love to make people happy. I like to bring joy to other people. I like to make you realize the gem that you are. And if it's, curling your hair, coloring it, talking about really whatever, like just on the outside, that's awesome. And I really, really love doing that. But it's also like having conversations with people and just sharing the love and like making, I remember an English project I did in like my junior year, and it was some basis of like, what do you want to be, or who are you, or what kind of like defines you? And it just sticks out to me that I used a bunch of songs from The Wedding Singer.
I'm very curious as to where this is heading.
I really like to make people laugh. I like to make people happy. And I know how much that like carries out into the world, where sometimes like there's so much negative news, and just life can really be tough. And I wanted to be somebody for anybody else that like spreads love and positivity and beauty and tries to like see the bright side of everything. So
I had, when I was 9 years old, I lost my bus tickets, and I was living with my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, you can either eat or walk. And I choose to eat, not realizing I went to school 2 hours away from where I lived.
Oh my goodness.
And so I walked and I cried. I will not lie. I cried. And so when I was returning back home, I thought to myself, how could I do this again? But of course I had to. So I walked back home. And I kept doing it for a couple of weeks because she wouldn't give in. And on my way from the walks back and forth, I keep asking, what is it I can do? And how could I look after me? Because if this is my life, then how am I going to make it better?
Yeah.
Because there is just no way that I can live my life this way ever. I guess I just kept saying this to myself every day. And, when the idea dawned on me, that's the thing I tell people, ideas come in such tiny whispers that you really got to pay attention. When the idea came to me to take orange and segment them into, sections, and a friend asked me for a piece and I gave it to her, and the third time I said, you got to buy a fag, and she did for 5 cents. And I realized that an orange got 12 of those inside, and I said, if I sell for 5 cents, I'm going to make 60 cents because I'm really good at math. And that started my journey. So I started selling oranges and any other fruit that Guyana had. Mm-hmm. I got my fruit, my potion. It was me and a sister, and I just sell half of what I got, and I just kept my money. And as I keep doing that, we had a system in our school that you can open a bank account and save $2 every time they come, and I would save my $2 and keep the rest. And I would save my $2 and keep the rest. And then I went into home economics. I learned how to cook and bake. And everything that I learned, I came home and I practiced, and then I would sell it. The kids who didn't like baking, I would bake for them and they'll pay me. The kids who didn't like cooking, I'll cook for them and they'll pay me. I'll make my own and I'll go and I'll sell it. And so I started selling a lot, and now I have all this extra money. So I asked the lady, could I save it? because they were giving 5% compound interest to us as kids. And that wasn't happening if you were an adult. So once she gave me all this information, I was like, everything I made, once I didn't need to buy the product, the extra went into the bank account. I tell people I graduated from high school with $100,000 in the bank because I was just pouring money in there.
When you were 14?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I was just pouring money in there. As I get paid, I just pour the money in because what else do I need to buy? And I was so good at walking by then that the bus didn't bother me because I'd break it down to 1.5 hours, then I brought it down to an hour because I was speed walking by then. So.
And getting all these awesome ideas on your little commute.
I'm like, yeah. So the bus was annoying. I took the bus a few times, but everybody was talking. So, I just kept walking. Walking was my thing because I wasn't athletically inclined. I danced and sing, but I did not do any kind of sports. So walking kept me fit too.
So many benefits. I love that.
Yes.
So I'm curious, a couple follow-up questions from that story. First of all, you said was it your mom or your grandma that said you?
My grandmother.
Okay, your grandmother. Did you resent her or anything at the time for this, or yeah?
Big time. Big time.
I would be like, no, come on. You have the power to fix this for you. But then it seems to have had such a profound positive impact on your life in the long term. So I assume you made peace with it and saw the benefits at some point.
I did. I think I was in my 3rd or 4th month, and I asked her how much she got paid a week. Mm-hmm. And I was making double her salary.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, I didn't say anything to her. I just smiled. I was like, oh, thank you. I started back into my meditation and my visualization and asking myself, what is it I really was meant to do? Never mind what I want to do. What was I meant to do? Sure. What is the best skill that I have? And I woke up one morning with money mindset. And I was questioning it for like 2 weeks straight. Mm-hmm. I'm like, who cares? Who would want to know? But I couldn't stop writing. That was the thing. I got pen and paper and I keep writing. Just thoughts were just flowing. And I'm like, this is what I was meant to do. How would I do this? So I tried Periscope for a bit. Then I went on Blab and I had a good 2 years split on Blab where I just talked to people about what I wanted to do, what was my idea, and who cared.
Okay.
And I got a really good response. And so that kept me going. And then I finally decided, I said, okay, so I'm a money mindset coach. That's what I can do. Because I'm good with money. I come from very humble beginnings. And I had trained my mind not to look at what's in front of me, but what I want to see happen. Oh, and like so from the age of 9 years old, when things seems to the naked eye that there was no possibility for me to be here talking with you today, I start seeing things that didn't make sense. So when I talk to my fellow, peers, it seems crazy. And I remember telling my mom once that I'll be coming to Canada. And she says, Karen, it's about time you just stop. Just give up on this dream. This is not going to happen.
Oh.
My heart broke. But I took it in stride. And I swallowed, and I thought to myself, I can think it without telling her.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking it. And so that's why when I got back to this spot, I said, Karen, what did you do when you were a little girl and nobody can see what is it you wanted to do? How did you move yourself from A to B? And it took a while. It was not overnight. It took a while. But once I was able to pull myself back through those steps, and I want to tell people, everything is one day at a time. That's the main thing I want to say. Because when you think of something that is so big beyond even you, mm-hmm. and you try to figure out how you're going to do everything, it's daunting and it can be very overwhelming. So you want to take a breath mm-hmm. and just ask, what do I do today? That's it. That's all you need to know. What to do today. That's it.
That's a great tip. So what would you say your purpose is? You had to define it, if you know. It seems like you've done experimenting and kind of figured it out, but
yeah.
If you had to describe it, what would you say?
My purpose, I'll tell you what my first purpose I thought it was when it first started. I thought my purpose was to help people that were very poor get rich. That was it.
Okay.
But as I grow into my craft, I realized it didn't matter if you were rich right now or poor. My purpose is to show you, is to guide you in how the mind works and what money does for you. I think, and only today I was writing about it, one of the biggest things about fear, when I first started being fearful of anything, and I'm afraid of heights. So I'm a work in process there. It's almost to be buddies with what is happening at the moment.
Okay.
So when you're in Fairland and you're so afraid and it seems like there's no way out, you actually have to embrace it and hug it up. You actually have to hug it and understand that this is happening right here, right now. And because when we run from it, it reappears in different forms. So it's to be one with it. So my big fear last year was I wanted to have this big program, and who's going to buy it? Who cares that they like me? Like, who's going to buy this? Because people would rather work with me one-on-one because then they get, my undivided attention and what have you. So who care about it? And so I procrastinating on writing the program. Okay. And then within a day or within a week, I had the basis set up. But I would not go in and do the content. And I was having this fight, this inner fight. And I think it was placed there so that when I teach, I can relate. So instead of looking at it as a bad thing, I start analyzing it. And I said to myself, what am I afraid of? So the writing, start taking place. Like, what is it that I'm afraid of? And so I wanted to own every feeling. Like, as I felt it, I wrote it. So I'm feeling afraid because nobody would buy. I'm feeling afraid because this number that I'm asking for is bigger, altogether if I get this amount of clients at once. I'm feeling afraid because I don't have a big enough email list. I'm feeling afraid because I'm not well known enough. I'm feeling, and so I was writing down every single feeling that was happening and asking why. And instead of fighting it and I just owned it. I think that was the key for me, just owning it. And then when I owned a lot of it, I went on vacation. I didn't write anything. I just went away on vacation because I had it planned. I was like, I'm not going to stay and worry about that. I'm just going to go. And when I come back, I'll be okay.
And then you came back and you're just able to start writing and making your program?
Yes.
Wow.
And just the shift of knowing that at this moment, if I can push through in writing, I needed to deal with all those feelings, those emotions, what was happening to me, and really experience it and not push past it. Because lots of times, and myself too, when I started out, I just want to push past the feelings and get to the end game. I really don't want to worry about the journey, which is important, but I really want the end. Yeah. And so over time, I've learned that even though the end is great, if I'm missing out the journey, sure, I can be a really good teacher, a facilitator. I really have nothing to help people with if I'm missing on the journey. Follow your passion. Do what really makes you smile and feel deep within contented, but understand that it's still work. Understand you got to get up and take daily actions every day. I've been in business for a long time, and I still get up feeling really happy and grateful that I'm alive to do all the great things that I get to do. I really feel happy in that spirit. And we all have off days where we, don't really want to do anything. And I like to tell my clients or anybody I know, take the time and just rest. If you're having an off day, do not feel compelled and guilty to get up and do something. Just tell yourself, today I'm taking it off. That way you're not feeling guilty that, I should have got this and this done. You just take it a day.
There's this one amazing book, especially if you need gentleness in your life and just to be able to come back to that place of peace. Sometimes you read a book and you can hear the voice of the person. You're like, oh, this is good. Yeah. This guy named Michael Singer, and he wrote a book called The Untethered Soul. Have you ever heard of it?
I think I have.
Yeah. Okay. It's so juicy. One of the things that he says is, your brain is going to give you the best effort for any task that you assign it. So if you tell your brain, this is implicitly, if you tell your brain that you want to live a life completely free of stress, winning every challenge you've ever thought of, it's going to try really hard for you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so your brain is going to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to get you that pressure-free winning life. And if you just let it know, like, hey, 90% is good.
Yeah.
10% of the time, you know, stuff might happen. That's totally okay. I understand. Like, there's a complete relaxation of that pressure relief valve. And when I read this, I just felt like the top of my head popped off. You know, like,
in a good way, though.
yeah. Like somebody poured peace inside of me, and I was just like, oh my God, like I could tell my brain that it doesn't have, like, that's an unrealistic mission, and it absolutely does not have to execute against that. Like, it can just chill out, and we can do our best.
Yeah.
God, the whole book is just this like wonderful prayer. It's so good. First coping mechanism that I would offer, which I'm not sure is widely employed, so this could be good new information, is to not go through it until you are going through it. And so I find a lot of people who are afraid of things in advance. And that's a very natural instinct that we have as humans.
Yeah.
But it also means that you need to go through things multiple times. So if you can give yourself permission, like just, you know, like on a soul level, and say like, okay, you know, like, yes, I'm scared about that. Also, it's not happening now. Like, we're just trying to eat our eggs right now. Okay. So calling yourself back to the present moment and say like, okay, not yet. Now, in conjunction with that, if there are things that you can do that are reasonable, because fear is a wonderful way of getting the body's attention, getting the mind's attention. Yeah. So it really is, it's calling in extra resources for you. Mm-hmm. So if you can leverage that and say like, okay, is there anything that I need to do right now? Is there any steps that I need to take? You can leverage that energy that you're expending through the fear. And that's another really effective way of showing up and saying like, okay, I see you. I'm not trying to hide from you. Sometimes you're a bit of a bastard. Like I recognize you have a job to do. It's cool. Like we can relate to one another. Those would be my top 2 tips.
Okay, I love that. And it almost reminded me of the same thing you said about the suffering being the optional, you know, side dish with pain. Is that, you know, worrying about something ahead of time that might not even happen or isn't happening right now is kind of the optional suffering that goes along with, you know, stressing out about something that's either a possibility or isn't this moment.
Yeah, so many people are skilled at time traveling. They spend a lot of their energy invested in the future, worrying about things that aren't happening, or regretting or being really wistful about things that happened in the past. Mm-hmm. And there's so much power that you have in the present moment, and you have to make the choice to be with yourself in the present moment. There's so much disassociation that we get trained to do, and a lot of it is just there's a little bit of head worship. Like, we're taught that our brains know what they're doing, and with all due respect to our brains, giving them that job is disproportionate to their power. They aren't that advanced. They shouldn't be promoted to that position. We should be locked on to the trifecta that we have: the body, our gut, our instincts, our intuition, and also the soul, you know, the heart.
Just being as crunchy as it sounds, like being willing to look at this, being willing to use this part of myself to heal myself, but to help other people. And I didn't realize how prominent food issues were amongst people. I sort of understood young girls living in LA. But the more people I talk to as I travel the world, as I travel the country, as I walk around my neighborhood, people are struggling with food and with health, whether it's on a large scale or just inside someone's home. Mm-hmm. And the scariest thing I've ever done is just sort of opening that can of worms. Like, now I wrote this, I did not put everything in there. Not because I wanted to save it for book number 2, but because I just wasn't ready to. And now I'm realizing when people are asking me questions or writing articles or doing podcasts and blogs, people are really tuning into exactly what I was writing about, and I'm having to answer those questions, and it's scary. It's scary.
I believe it is. If you had to share the stuff you left out right now, what would you feel comfortable sharing so that people can kind of get a sense, A, of more toward what the book is about, and then B, what you've continued to dare to share?
I think in the book it comes across that I've like healed myself and it's all good now. And as I continue to talk about it, I'm realizing just how prevalent what I'm dealing with is in my everyday. And I spent, a couple years of my life, for the better part of 1 year, but for the most part, just afraid of food, afraid of being a vegan, afraid of being a vegetarian, afraid of being paleo, afraid of not eating, afraid of eating too much, afraid of eating too often, afraid of not eating often enough. It was too scary. There was too much information out there, and I just messed up my body. I was eating the cleanest, healthiest diet anyone could ever imagine. However, I had guilt for eating a kale salad because maybe I ate too much of it, or maybe there was too much olive oil on it, or maybe I felt like I was depriving myself of the fried chicken and waffles I really wanted on the menu. I just, like, every single thing I put in my body, although objectively healthy, clean, yummy, just felt like poison. And I'm realizing now that that was my way of thinking about it. That was my relationship to it. And I did not put a lot of that in the book because wasn't quite sure I wanted to share that with maybe it was just my parents. I tell strangers on the subway in New York, and I tell my cab driver here in LA, but I didn't want my parents to know just how afraid of food I was for so long.
And I think that that's probably something that a lot of people can identify with. Sometimes the people that are closest to us, it's more scary to share with them because if it's a stranger, you could walk away and never see them again, and there's no repercussions. But if it's, your parents that either you live with or you see all the time, or, your significant other, your best friend, you have to deal with their potential judgment, their reaction. And I can see how that could be pretty difficult.
Reminding myself what it was like and how okay I was after I did it the last time.
Oh, I like that. So when you're doing it, it's like a recurring battle, the same type of, and it's just like, okay, I didn't die last time. I actually helped someone, probably felt good after. I can do it again. I like that. That's great advice.
It's like, it's a sense of accomplishment. It's a good feeling. Everyone's probably nervous when they skydive, but when you're done skydiving, it feels good. And if you skydive again the next day, you're probably going to be a little bit nervous. But if you can remember the joy and the freedom and the appreciation you felt, the confidence you felt in yourself after, it helps a little to do it again. Actually, it doesn't help. It doesn't actually take any of that away.
Sure.
But it's a comforting thought briefly. But, what is life if we're not a little bit afraid of something or a little bit excited about something? And we're all human.
Yeah.
We teach that which we need to learn, right? So my advice is relax. Don't take life so seriously. I'm telling myself this right now. Take a deep breath, step back, just be. We're all going to be okay. We're all going to be okay. That's the best piece of advice that I need to give myself today and every single morning that I wake up.
I'm a big reader, so I always have like 3 books going at a time. Like right now, I'm like reading 3 different books, and I'm obsessed, and like I devour them. And so I know the power of a book. Like I know that you can spend like $5 or $6 on a Kindle, and you can have like somebody's brain like just there on their book. Like that's insane. Like that's insane. Like, and there's so many books out there who literally tell you step by step how to get somewhere, or how to do something, or how to shift your mindset. And I'm like, why are more people not using these? Like I'm literally like, they're like my mentors, like all the time, these people who are in their books.
Successful.
And Tony Robbins, like, I think he talked about reading like a gazillion biographies when he first started, because he didn't have the money to like, work with the best people at the time, but he did have the money to buy a book. So he bought like, I don't know, hundreds of biographies, and he just read those. And I think there's just so much, Right? And it's like, so it's like, to me, it's like, that's so easy. And that's so there. I mean, don't get me wrong about literacy. I have a huge thing about that as well. But like, so anyway, so I was like, well, by giving this book to people, they can then learn what I wish I'd known, 2 years ago, even 3 years ago, when I started my first business. I think there are a lot of beliefs that we have that are totally of lack mentality. So again, it comes back to like money mindset, but I think that's such a big part because it's kind of interlinked with all of mindset and self-belief and self-worth and all that rest of it. And even me, like, I grew up, my parents, when they first started, they were like struggling to pay rent, but then they really did very well for themselves. So that we had a really amazing childhood in that sense. And we never struggled to have enough money. However, because their parents had a bit of a lack mentality, I definitely took that on for a lot of things. And so I really struggled. Like I felt so guilty about asking for money. I thought I should just give without, charging anything.
Yeah.
And so on, like all the rest of it. And also like, I just kept hitting like ceilings, like about like, okay, this is enough now. Like, why do you need more? Like all that. So that book was really good.
Conversation with my fiance.
Oh, really?
Like I randomly said something about like being a multimillionaire, and he's like, multimillionaire? How about billionaire? I'm like, why do you need that much? And then he's like, why don't you?
yeah, exactly. Why don't you? Like, why not? There's so much truth in that. Like, I what I'm seeing as well is like the more money I'm able to create and receive in my business, it's like also your thinking changes, because then certain survival mode like starts, you're no longer in survival mode, so you can start thinking differently than you used to. And I think that's so like nowadays, like I recently launched like a membership group and website, and that's like $17 a month. And it's like, I could never have done, I didn't have the capacity for that before. And I didn't even think about it like that. Now I'm like, okay, but that means I can impact more people, and just the thinking changes. So I think having money is also so great because you start thinking bigger, I think, as well. I think this is why I succeed, is that I don't, I'll explain it in a way where I hope it makes as much sense to like your listeners as possible. It's like, if somebody were to ask me to go bungee jumping tomorrow, I don't think I'd move past that fear.
Okay.
Like, I just don't think I would do it. The reason being is because I treasure my life more than words can say, and anything that can even like put me in more risk of that, I'm just like not interested. Doesn't like, whatever. Even like I've never been someone who took drugs, because I was like, no, anything that could even slightly. And people always thought that was hilarious, and I was like, nope. So my life is so important to me. I really treasure it, and I treasure my body, and I treasure my ability to be healthy, all of it.
Sure.
On the other hand, so I would really say, I'd be so scared, and I would just be like, no, I wouldn't even try to go through it or whatever. Whereas when it comes to my business, like every time where it's like I've made really big investments in my business before I was ready at all. Like I wasn't like financially ready, and I wasn't like comfortable. I had to take out a loan. I had to take out PayPal cash. I had to really take some stuff out and really stretch myself around. Okay, well then you obviously really believe in yourself then if you're going to go do those things. But for me, it's so like, I know it's right. I have this, I think maybe what it is that I'm so close to my gut. I really know what's right, and I really know what's not right. And so even though it's so scary, it doesn't feel like I have to push past it. And people always say that, and I always read that in books about pushing past the fear. And even when I've spoken in front of like hundreds of people or whatever, you get that kind of feeling in your stomach. But to me, I guess it's, I remember reading a book about this, and they said they started framing it differently. So they would say, I can't remember what they'd say. They said like, oh, this is excitement. Okay. This feels excitement. And so I think that's what I do is I think, oh, I'm really living here right now in this moment of feeling all these like nerves and butterflies. I'm really living. This is on the edge of like, this is where you really feel exhilarated and like lit up by like life in itself. So I think that's how I see it. And I think that's why I'm like, it's not really fear. You can label it that way, but that's going to make it so much harder, I think.
That's right. You make decisions that will bring you closer to doing more of what you love doing. And like I said, it took me a long time to figure that out. In fact, I was, 2 years, a year ago, I was still taking on all kinds of projects that I wasn't aligned to. I hadn't really discovered what I wanted to do yet.
Yeah.
And that leads pretty quickly to burnout because I was just kind of working so hard.
Right.
And my passion had died.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens. And I think that is vital for any kind of breakthrough, is to go through a breakdown of some sort.
I like that. That's a great tip.
So that's what that's the first step to acknowledging that something's not working. It's okay that, everything is falling down. You've got curveballs hitting you left, right, and center. It's okay. It means that you are ready for that next stage in your life. And I certainly got that. And I'm glad I did. So whenever something like that happens, it's like, okay, there's something coming. I know that. I just have to kind of figure it out for myself and try and really go deeper and discover what it is that I'm not doing authentically in my life. But I certainly was very aware of that. The life I was leading was making me pretty miserable. I was pretty unhappy. There's no way to describe it. And then coming back from that trip, it was like, okay, I have to make some decisions. I have to change what I'm doing. What am I going to do? And I decided I didn't want to give up the design. I loved that. It's just I needed to tweak who I was dealing with and what I was working on.
Sure.
And that made a huge difference. So it was a slight change made the biggest difference. So even if some of your, viewers or listeners, if they're in a position where things aren't quite working out, it doesn't mean you have to give up everything that you've done. It could mean just going back to the drawing board and seeing how you can tweak your services or your offerings in a way that's more aligned to who you are, and be guided by yourself, actually. And one of the most important things that I did was to allocate time to work on my business.
Sure.
So 100% of, 95% of my work hours was spent on clients, and maybe 5% was month-end accounts, making sure my accountant had all the information. But other than that, I hadn't really looked at my brand. I hadn't, got new pictures taken. I hadn't updated my website. I kind of just let that all slide, and I wasn't delivering any kind of content to people. I was just so much in a rut of just, working for clients, that I think the biggest shift was work on myself. This is, and actually almost, I'm the CEO of the company. I need to brand myself. I need to look after myself and my business and where am I going versus just everybody else and all my clients. So that was also a big shift in my business as well. And I think everyone who might be feeling stressed and overwhelmed is like, how much time are you spending on your business and your vision for your business? How much are you being the CEO of your company versus just being the kind of worker in your company? Because we have different hats that we all wear. And definitely, if we're not looking after one part of that facet, then we're going to be stressed out. So that really excites me. So to allocate time in my day or week or month to create things that are for me. So perhaps there's a photographer out there that is listening, for example, and they're just taking wedding pictures all the time. And maybe they've got a little bit, blasé about their work. And maybe it means taking the camera out and just taking pictures of their dog or their kids or their husband or their friends. And just to get that kind of joy back into their lives, just for nobody else, not even for Instagram or Facebook.
And you probably hear this a lot when you're working with us ladies, that we can be very selfless and think that it's selfish to take care of ourselves, when really we take care of other people as well if we're not, being kind to ourselves. And
totally. I mean, I've got the badge for that. I won that award. And it gets a bit stale saying, people saying, well, how are you doing? Well, I'm busy all the time. I'm so busy, and I've doubled my amount of projects I'm working on. Gone are those days. It's not okay anymore to be busy.
Right.
It's not okay. It's not okay. There's all these things online. Be booked out by your clients. And I'm like, you don't want to be booked out. Who wants to be booked out? Because you want to have that time for yourself. You've got, you're the only person in your business. if you are not looking after yourself as the main breadwinner in your business is going to fold.
These situations where you've had to push past fear.
That's a really good question. My default thing to do when I'm in fear of any sort is to kind of make a list. And kind of, I know it's probably not going to help, but it calms me down. It puts my thoughts on paper. Okay, well, what do I need to get for the baby? Okay, well, and then I can list out all the items that I need to buy or get ready for. So that helps calm me down. Okay. Just because I know that that's the kind of personality. It's like I have to look after this personality that is called Carol. If that makes sense in a way. So that calms me down quite a lot, and just kind of preparing. And you can't prepare for certain things, and I get that. But it's just a false sense of kind of security by me going through that fear. So even when I was going to do the big Robben Island swim, certainly the more prepared I was, the calmer I am. And like I said, there's nothing that can prepare you for just jumping in and doing it. But it does help me a lot with just doing it and actually just jumping.
Okay, so I like that. So I think that even though you said like this might not help, but I think that could be really applicable to someone who is looking to do something scary, whether it is leave their corporate job or, do a crazy swim. If you kind of break it down into the small things that you have to do, make a list of them, and then just stop thinking about it and doing it. That seems to be an effective strategy. So I think that is a great way to go.
So I would say the first recommendation that I would have is just to have an honest conversation. If you're married, or maybe you have a partner, or even if you're single, sit down with a friend and try and find somebody that you can talk to about it, and that you can trust, obviously. And for us, that, again, we fought about money when we first got married, and we just had to practice and, just say, hey, we're going to spend an hour a week talking about it and just writing all of our bills down. And like, when do they do? Who likes to pay the bills? Who likes to plan? And, saying, hey, it's okay if she does that. And it's okay if I do this. We don't have to follow like the traditional gender roles that society gives us in finances. And so, we found a role that we both enjoyed, and, it literally just takes time. And so we talk a lot about budgeting together as a couple is really important. And, just being honest and just knowing it's going to be hard, and you have to work at it just like any other goal in your life, whether it's weight loss or eating healthy or, starting a business. I mean, these are all huge life things. And so I think sometimes it's easy to say, oh, well, I'm not good at that because, it didn't work out for me. I tried it a couple times, but literally we had to work at just understanding money together. And so I would say just understanding like the basics and being educated that you can change your situation, even if you don't make a lot of money.
Sure. To remember to stay grounded, because fear can push us away from doing things that are the best experiences we could ever have in life. And so I think that I would probably tell them like fear is good. Then that probably means that you should look into it more and see if this could really be a life-changing moment or experience. I would just say like, do not just run away from fear, Yeah.
Yeah, so those failures were very, very difficult for me. So like I said before, like my life was just falling apart, literally falling apart. Like I had nothing. I was laying in my bed crying every day with my dog, like this, and I kid you not.
Your sick dog, no less.
Exactly. And I had no money. I had lost everything. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be running a business. And like, eventually I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm never getting this low again. I'm never going to let any external factors affect me in a way like it has ever again. And I got my ass up and I did my shit, but it was just one continuous failure. And until I got to that point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore, then I was fine. But up to that point, like it was just one continuous failure. I felt like a failure. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm not ready to do this, but I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back because I already burned the bridge. I already quit the job.
Okay. So it basically came almost to a mental breaking point where you just couldn't accept it anymore, and that pushed you to
Yeah.
change your mind and take action.
And it didn't happen. Like I make it sound like it happened right after that, but it didn't. So that happened. And then I'm like, okay, let's do this. I talked to my co-founder. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to get these clients. And we were sending out emails. I would send out like 5 emails a day. I'm like, okay, that's good, guys. We did it. And like nothing would happen. And
Can
I'm
you
like,
imagine Gary Vee sending out 5 emails and calling it a day?
And that's what I'm saying. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm like, this isn't working. So I'd send out 10 emails. This isn't working. 20 emails, 100 emails. This isn't working. So I just started meeting with people, and I started, like, this is a little different. I've never done this before, so it's kind of funky. But like when we sit down in a coffee shop, like I am very, very quirky. I'm very, very weird. And something that Hamad told me, he's like, Q, something that you have going for you is that nobody looks like you. Nobody acts like you. So I run with that. And personal branding is huge to me. So I sit down with these people, and I just bring value, learn their story, talk to them, get to know them, become their friend. And then from there, like most of the time, each of us has something to gain. And it's not like I want to be your social media agency. I don't want to be who you're outsourcing to. It's not anything like that. I just want to bring you value, and I want to hear your story. And that's worked for me. It's slower, but it's worked for me. But when I was working under him, he told me, remember the secretary's name, and always bring value, and make sure that they remember your name. So I send a bunch of messages when I see things that are relevant. So the virtual reality company, right? I see something that's important, something that's relevant to them. I send that to them. I thought of you, just something simple, just to stay relevant. And I would do that every single day. Every single day, I would go through my contact list. Every single day, go through my contact list on my phone. Just send as many emails, messages, texts, DMs as possible. And then eventually, let's sit down for coffee. Let's chat. Let's catch up. And most of the time, I wouldn't bring up, like, let me run your social media. It would be them that would say that, because they see what I'm doing and my skill set. And it's just me bringing value and being present.
I think the scariest thing I've ever done was when I was 43. I had a wife and 2 children, and I quit my job with no money in the bank, no savings, to start a new business, to start my own business, which is what it's grown to today. But that first couple of years, it was it was more than a little scary to think that it may come to the fact that I can't feed my family because of this bold move that I've made. On the other hand, very few successful businesses get to be successful without making bold moves. So, in retrospect, it was a good thing to do, and it was the best thing to do. And I wasn't reckless about it. I mean, I had some predetermined ideas, and I'd done a business plan, and I knew that if I stuck to the business plan, it would be successful. But still, I didn't really have a fallback position.
Sure.
It's a weird kind of thing to think about, and yet those are the kind of statements, that I've made over the last decade that started out being like, what is he talking about, to, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's the concept that grains, that, heart healthy whole grains are the best thing you can eat. Well, my life and my health really started to improve once I got rid of heart healthy whole grains.
Right.
So it's crazy.
I'm curious as to what kind of reactions you've had from all different types of people when you started sharing the results you were finding from your research and self-experimentation about all of these things that, like you said, are diametrically opposed to living a healthy life. How did people respond?
Well, I mean, some people go, good for you, and other people go, how can you possibly say that? You're ridiculous. You're not a scientist. You're not an MD. So how can you even make a statement like that? I'm blown away by the number of doctors who initially said that's rubbish, there's no way that's true, and now are coming around to understanding that saturated fat isn't the major cause of heart disease, that cholesterol is actually a pretty beneficial molecule in the body, and we just have to manage how we manufacture it and how we dispose of it. And people who are even dermatologists who would say, what, I agree, a little bit of sun is fine. Just don't get burned. Some simple, adjustments to that sort of advice. But, I like being the sort of the leading edge guy who's coming up with a hypothesis that might not be readily accepted, but
Sure.
eventually, as you look deeper and deeper, go, wow, that's pretty crazy that that's actually true. That these assumptions that we've made all along about how the body works were at worst erroneous, or excuse me, at best erroneous, and at worst potentially dangerous.
I love that. I'm curious. I hope you found those business BAs as inspiring as I did. I wanted to make a little bit of an apology. As I mentioned, I am editing this as opposed to my wonderful assistant for whom I am so grateful. And for that reason, I was not savvy enough to put introductions for each person. So if you don't recognize who they are, don't worry. I have the show notes that have links to the full episode. So if there are any particular people that you found totally fascinating and want to hear more from, if you head to www.mandiem.com/episode 131, you can find links to the full-length shows from all of those 11 fantastic guests. Now, I would love it if you subscribe. That way you'll get either an automatic download or a notification every time I post a new episode. And I have a great challenge for you coming this Friday, as well as another fantastic compilation episode coming next Monday. I also, of course, would love it if you would share this. For anyone new to this, this would be a perfect episode because it's some of the best of the best. It gets you all caught up. Anyway, I would also love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes. That helps let everyone know that lets iTunes know that a lot of people are enjoying the show, and we'll get more eyes and ears on it. Thank you so much for listening or watching. As always, be bold and have a sparkly day. Bye-bye.